Hey guys, today I'm going to be bringing you a relatively new pistol chambered in a very different cartridge. It's the 5.7 or the 57 by Ruger. Now, before I get too deep into that, first of all, I got somebody a couple of bays down that's shooting a, I believe it's a 300 blackout. A little bit of noise down there, but also, good Lord, right now, apparently coronavirus is really good breeding grounds for carpenter bees, because this appears to be carpenter bee heaven right now in South Louisiana. There are hundreds and maybe thousands of carpenter bees. If it's any indication about how many there are, this place is going to be history in about a year, because they are everywhere. So if you're going to see, you will see some distractions today as carpenter bees buzz me, do some flybys and things like that. They apparently appear to be camera hounds. So they're everywhere. So again, you're going to see quite a few of them today. Totally harmless in my eyes. I'm not worried about them, but they are everywhere. So getting back to the gun, the Ruger 57, chambered in 5.7 by 28, a very interesting entry into the market of guns, just based on the caliber or the round alone. Now, FN had the 5.7. They spelled it really creatively so that everybody would know that they were different. But this was really the only offering in the 5.7 chambered round for about 20 years now. Along comes Ruger, says we're going to do something a little bit different. And some other people actually have kind of delved into it a little bit along the way, but actually some newer offerings this year that I'll point out in a little while. Which gun is better? Well, I've shot both of them quite a bit. This one I've probably put about 250, close to 300 rounds through. Probably put closer to 700 or 800 rounds through the FN because I've had it for some time. So I'll talk about the differences between the two and the similarities here in a second, but I want to point out the Ruger 57 is very much like, when you look at it, you'll see a lot of the same features that you saw on the Ruger, and I don't remember what the name of it is. I think it's the Ruger American and 45 Auto. You're going to notice a lot of the same like grip angle, a lot of the same designs on the grip. The slide has some similarities between them, although there are definitely differences as well. But nevertheless, you can see that Ruger is sticking with the overall theme that they want their handguns to have, and I think that's cool. They're going to be recognizable from a branding standpoint. That's great whenever you go to the range and you recognize that, hey, that guy's shooting a Ruger American style pistol of some sort, regardless of the caliber that it might be in. So it's kind of neat that Ruger is sticking with that. Now, there's some things that are clearly different. Obviously, the caliber, for instance. Now, the magazines themselves, these magazines versus the FN magazines are a metal magazine. The FN magazine is an all polymer magazine. Holds 20 rounds. 2 of them come in your case. It's got a polymer follower as well. The pistol itself has very nice, and you'll notice a very high front sight, but it's a nice fiber optic green sight. Adjustable rear sights for wind and elevation. That's pretty nice. You'll also notice that it has a thumb safety, very reminiscent of a 1911. Kind of unusual. You don't typically see this unless it's a requirement from the military or something like that. You don't usually see a thumb safety on these type of polymer style pistols. So again, reminiscent of what you might find on a 1911. A lot of the other features, you would expect them. You know, it's got your Picatinny rail on it for you to put lights, lasers, whatever. We call these the penal triggers. It has the penal safety on it where it has the little thing in the middle that hangs down, and that engages your safety. Don't be, I guess, confused or sidetracked by that and assuming that this is a striker fire, because it is in fact not a striker fire. There is a internal hammer in here. This one you can actually see it. The FN has an internal hammer as well, but they encase it in this polymer, I guess you could call it clothing on theirs. And you don't see it on the back, where you do see the hole, and you can actually see the visible and physical hammer that's being cocked and then fired in the back of this one. So kind of cool. The texturing is nice, a little bit different than the other Ruger that we had. The other Ruger had more of the, I guess, kind of a slick surface on it. The front strap had a little bit of the serrations on it, where this one has more of the stippling type grip on it, including the front strap and the back strap, where it has that stippling and not serrations, so to speak, and not, more of an aggressive type of grip on it. I don't know if that's from customer feedback or if their engineers just decided to do that. It looked good. It looked better. And I feel like you're going to get a little bit better grip. Though that really minute stippling almost gives it a skateboard tape type feel. That way you're going to get a good grip, solid grip, without it digging into your hands, whether your hands are wet, whether you're wearing gloves, whether you have small hands, you're still going to get a positive grip on this thing. So I think that's probably more of an engineering thing, but it's very possible. Some of these companies actually do listen to the customers, and it's possible their customers may have given them that feedback. A couple of really noticeable things that you will notice is that you're going to be dealing with much bigger, as far as girth goes this way, grip than you would on some of the other pistols, simply because you're dealing with a much longer round. So they're having to accommodate that in there. They can't make it too narrow because they are trying to stack in 20 rounds into this magazine. But again, your length of the round is what's dictating this thickness going front to back. You're also going to notice that the pistol itself seems to be a little bit longer than a standard handgun would be. Again, remembering that this round was developed to kind of compete with the 9mm, or to potentially be a replacement for the 9mm with NATO. So keeping that in mind, you'll notice that this is a good bit longer than your standard sized, full size pistol. That has a little bit to do with ballistics. The 5.7 by 28 requires a little bit different ballistics. We're not going to get into that. There's a whole lot of other conversations with the 5.7 round that we could be talking about. I just don't want to go through all that because that can be quite time consuming. They do relieve a little bit of metal on top of the slide. My guess is that's simply for weight. In many cases, you're going to want to have a little bit more weight out front for I would say like a 9mm up to a 40 Smith & Wesson up to a 45. You don't want to take that weight away out front, because sometimes that's helping you control your recoil a little bit, helping it be a little bit more manageable and keeping that front end down. Because this is such a high velocity round and your mass is not quite so big, you're experiencing a lot less recoil. So by them taking this little bit out of the front on top of the slide, that actually helps a little bit, because you don't need to push that nose down as much as you would with a standard size carry round. So that's kind of the benefit that you're going to see there. I'm not a huge fan of that if you were actually going to use this pistol for a carry gun, and you could, because at night if you're shooting this thing, you're going to experience some light that you probably don't want to see that might affect you as a shooter. Your follow-up shot might not be quite as consistent because you're blinded by the fire. So keep that in mind as well in the event you are trying to do that. Kind of weird thing here. Some guns do this, some guns don't. You do have the ability to make your magazine catch ambidextrous. You can flip it to the other side, and it has that ambidextrous already thumb safe. It comes equipped ambidextrous. It comes equipped to be ambidextrous on the mag catch, but it doesn't even have the ability to be ambidextrous on the slide catch. So usually whenever you're trying to dip your toe into that ambidextrous world, because from what I understand, lefties are people too, that's what I'm told, usually you do it or you don't do it. I get sometimes, like Glock for instance, sometimes we'll put the mag catch where you can switch it around if you want to, because that's kind of an easy thing to do as far as equipping the gun. But they went through the trouble of doing the thumb safety like that, but not the slide catch. So I'm not really sure about that. I don't know if it has to do with the mechanics of the round and how the inside of it is made, because this pistol is not made like, since it is not a striker fired, it's not made like your typical striker fires on the inside. So my guess is that maybe from an engineering standpoint that was necessary. Again, talking about the inside, it does not have your normal John Browning lockup that you would have in your standard pistols, 1911s, Glocks, and all your striker fires out there. It is a different locking mechanism inside. In fact, it shares roughly the same type of engineering on the inside of the pistol that the FN does as well. Again, it works. Whatever they're doing inside of it, it works. Again, there must be reasons for that. These people get paid a lot of money to design the functionality of the inside of these guns, so clearly there's a reason for it. I'm not going to get into that because I simply don't know the answer. Today I'm going to be shooting rounds from American Eagle and from FN themselves. FN does package their own ammunition. I doubt that they make this ammunition, but it does come with their own little box and their really pretty blue tip on the front of it. Very nice. These guys are both 40 grain rounds, so they're going to experience the same type of performance. So let's run some rounds down range. I'm not really going to do anything for a accuracy test today. Just want to see how the gun itself functions and show you guys how it operates and explain a little bit about the mitigation of recoil that they've managed to do in these types of guns with this particular caliber. There's my bee. There's one of my bees. He's stalking my camera. Again, guy, this must be carpenter bee heaven out here. They're everywhere. Guys, this Ruger 57 is fun to shoot. It's fun in that it's easy to control. You hit what you're shooting. The sights, I didn't go into them enough earlier, but they are very, very easy to pick up. That fiber optic jumps out at you. I think I like the green better than red on some of these other pistols out there, because this thing really jumps up out. And when you go to get in a shooting position, you see that green dot. It's almost like it demands your attention. You're not going to not focus on your sights. Some people have a habit of, unfortunately, looking more at their target than at their sights. And that front sight is just, again, it demands attention. So I do like that. But I would say this gun is funner than what it is to shoot. But usually whenever I say these guns are fun to shoot, we associate that kind of terminology with, say, like a 22 or a 22 Magnum, simply because you can shoot all day and it's cheap to shoot. While the rounds for the 5.7 have certainly come down in price versus where they were 15, 10, 20 years ago even, obviously that's still a little bit pricier than normal ammunition. I know you can find it sometimes for the same price that you would a 5.56, but still 5.56 is not as cheap to shoot as 22 and sometimes 22 Magnum. So that's where, yes, I use the term fun, because usually fun is associated with low recoil and a little bit lower cost as far as shooting. Nevertheless, if you take the element of cost out of it, this thing is a blast. Follow-up shots are ridiculously easy to maintain because, again, you're shooting a low-mass, high-velocity bullet that is not pushing back on you. I wonder what else they have planned in this caliber. You know, I'm a big fan of the carbine, the PC carbine or whatever that Ruger did. They've done some cool stuff with that. I'm still disappointed that they haven't put that out on 10 millimeter. That's all for another story, another time. But my guess is, and I wonder if at some point they're not going to introduce that particular rifle in the 5.7 format now that they are already getting into that 5.7. What a cool combination that would be, especially if they made it to where it would most likely share the same magazine. If they made a carbine in that and use the same magazines, and you can actually have both of these in your vehicle, go out plinking or whatever, at some point, the more people that are buying this round and this ammunition and more guns that emerge onto the marketplace, that's just going to lower the cost of that ammunition. So I do see the ammunition as coming lower and lower and lower at some point. Again, as more of the demand gets out there, the production is probably going to ramp up a little bit, and they can drop that cost a little bit. As far as comparing it to the FN 5.7, the FN is going to run you almost twice as much as what you're going to get this Ruger for. So that's one thing to consider. The fact that they have this polymer slide with the metal insert on the 5.7 is kind of cool, gives it kind of a future-y looking look, but it also has a little bit of a clunky look to it. I do find that the Ruger is a little bit nicer looking. Slight bit heavier on the Ruger 57. I don't find that that's necessary, of course, because you're dealing with a round that's not pushing back on you near as much, so you don't need that weight on the firearm itself. So I would have to say, even if you took cost out of the equation, the Ruger is probably a better pistol overall. Now, we don't know how long that's going to last, because the FN 5.7 has a pretty good track record of reliability over time. So we got 20 years of history here, and we only have a few months of history here. Now, I want to point something out. Speaking of 5.7, I mentioned earlier in the video that there would be some things coming out from other manufacturers. This is a future video that I will be going over with this bad boy. If you look, the silver upper on here, that is by CMMG. You'll also notice this magazine in there. This magazine is a 5.7 magazine. This upper with the bolt carrier and bolt in it is also a 5.7 upper by CMMG. The black unit that you see down on the bottom and the buttstock, all of this that's black on the bottom is from my Ruger AR pistol that I already had chambered in 5.56. It's just a matter of taking my 5.56 upper receiver off and putting this silver CMMG receiver on, and now I can use their own proprietary magazines and shoot this 5.7 round in the same rifle that I already owned. Very cool conversion. This is going to be in an upcoming video. Look for it very, very soon in the next few weeks. Hopefully by next week I'll get that out. But really looking forward to this. I have not fired this yet. Totally excited about it. We'll see you guys next time. Hey guys, don't ever, ever, ever be ashamed to be the safest person in the room and the deadliest. Thanks, guys.